Hello class. For this week I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to make one longer video so that you don't have to worry about clicking on two videos, and I'm going to go over what you will be working on this week in the weekly rundown, and I will also discuss your next major assignment, the Discourse community analysis. So again, I'm going to do this in one video instead of two, just to make the viewing experience maybe a little bit easier, and so that you only have to worry about watching one video instead of two. So without any further ado, let's get to this week. We are beginning work on the Discourse community analysis papers. You should have your final draft of the literacy narrative with feedback and a grade by Tuesday night at the absolute latest. This week, you will be reading Ann Johns' article on discourse communities. This is a seminal piece that includes Swales identifying factors of what makes a discourse community. John Swales is a different author than Ann Johns, but he, of course, has also done a lot of research on discourse communities. This is a dense and complicated reading. Therefore, I'm going to ask you to write a summary for your journal entry this week. Your reading will also play into the one-pager this week, as I am asking you to begin considering which discourse community you are a member of to write the analysis about. I want a list of 3 potential spaces so I can begin dialogues with each of you. So one of the readings that you are doing also is Official American English is Best. This reading begins by discussing the debate surrounding English as potentially being the official language of the United States. The implicit attitude of this movement is that immigrants do not want to learn English. The author reviews the history of English-only movements and some of the negative things that have resulted from that. Immigrants, in fact, as the author says, learn English at a faster rate than at any point in history in the 21st century. And the idea is that schools bear responsibility for building better citizens. Language hybridity has always existed. This is the idea that students and people speak multiple languages, and it will continue to exist despite potential pushes for English-only education. Some of this has to do with immigration, and a lot of this has to do with the fact that so many people in this country, although it is not taught as much in schools and it is not a requirement to know 2 languages, we have a lot of people in this country who speak a couple of languages, with English being their second language. For the discussion board this week, you will be responding to the reading Official American English is Best by Stephen Alvarez, which can be found in your textbook, pages 93 through 98. Alvarez discusses the myths surrounding English-only practices. He reviews some of the history and concludes by discussing the value of knowing multiple languages and accepting many varieties of communities of practice. In a post of about 200 to 250 words, discuss whether you agree with the author's overall point and provide an example or 2 of statements he makes and why you disagree. In addition, discuss some of the benefits of knowing multiple languages for you personally as you consider a professional career. Please complete an initial post, as always, of 200 to 250 words by Tuesday, September the 28th at 11:59. Please complete your 2 response posts by Friday, October the 1st at 11:59. So again, the discussion board is completely focused around this reading by Stephen Alvarez. Okay, let's break down discourse communities and communities of practice, membership, conflict, and diversity. John Swales lists 6 defining characteristics of a discourse community. This is again found in the Ann Johns piece. Please make sure that you are specific. This is Swales that is saying it, but Johns is actually the one that is mentioning it in her article. The first is that it has a broadly agreed set of common public goals. It has mechanisms of intercommunication among its members, such as newsletters or journals. It utilizes and hence possesses one or more genres in the communicative furtherance of its aims. It uses its participatory mechanisms primarily to provide information and feedback. In addition to owning genres, it has acquired some lexemes. Okay? Now, some of this you may not have a full understanding of. The purpose of reading through this article is with the understanding that you're not necessarily going to understand what a discourse community is by the end of week 5. Okay? Reading through some of the example papers, both the ones that are published examples as well as the student examples, that is what is going to tell you what a discourse community is. Okay, and you'll hopefully develop a better understanding. Okay, the genres are very clear and very specific once you understand them. Lexemes are the words. Students will often use the word jargon. It's not quite jargon, but lexemes are specific words that are used within a particular community. Okay? So this is all really important, and the idea of a discourse community has a very broad definition. This class is an example of a discourse community. Okay? Your job, if you have a job, that specific space is an example of a discourse community. Your family is a discourse community. Okay? So there are a number of examples which you will have a chance to write about. Thus, communities of practice are seen as complex collections of individuals who share genres, language, values, concepts, and ways of being often distinct from those held by other communities. People are born or taken involuntarily by their families and cultures into some communities of practice. These first culture communities may be religious, tribal, social, or economic. Okay? So here's the thing. When you're born, you don't have a choice about what preschool you go to or what church you go to if you go to church. Okay? You are involuntarily members of these various communities. Okay? You also do not get to pick your family either. You are involuntarily a member of that family. Okay? So this is what we mean by first culture communities. Eventually, you will have the opportunity to choose what communities you are a part of. Okay, you choose to be a member of the University of Memphis Discourse community. You are not choosing which church, whether you go to church or not even, to go to at this point. Okay, but when you're first born, that's not the case. Individuals often affiliate with several communities at the same time, with varying levels of involvement and interest. People may join a group because they agree politically, because they want to socialize, or because they are interested in a particular sport or pastime. The depth of an individual's commitment can and often does change over time. Okay, this is really important. Okay, you will be involved in some communities and then you will stop being involved in some communities. Okay, eventually, hopefully after you've graduated with a bachelor's and maybe even a master's, you will no longer be associated with this discourse community. And that's fine. And you will go to perhaps another school. You will perhaps go to another job, a career field. Okay, discourse communities are very, very interesting. They're kind of an abstract concept, but again, a lot of what you're doing in the paper is you're going to be able to choose which community, and I think you'll have a clear understanding of a discourse community, hopefully, as we get into some of the examples. People can choose communities at will and remain affiliated at levels of their own choosing. For a number of reasons, this is not entirely accurate. Okay? In some cases, people are excluded from communities because they lack social standing, talent, or money, or because they live in the wrong part of town. Okay, one of the reasons that you are able to be members of the University Memphis Discourse community is because you are paying tuition, or someone is paying for you to be here. So money can be a preventative factor in allowing students to attend this college. People who are often must drop or at least diminish in importance their affiliations to their home cultures in order to take on the values, language, and genres of their disciplinary culture. Okay, so think about if you are an ESL student and your parents speak a different language at home, then for you as a student, okay, you often have to assimilate into the culture of this community, the University of Memphis community, and maybe you have to diminish your first language. This is an unfortunate byproduct, okay? And this is definitely the section. Pay attention closely to this reading. Again, I don't expect you to have a full understanding of the Ann Johns piece. It is the most difficult reading that we will do this semester, okay? But now that we're 5 weeks into the course, I want you to approach this reading with the understanding that yes, this is difficult and this assignment is going to be difficult, but that you need to be challenged. Okay, because this is the kind of thing that you're going to do throughout the rest of your college career. You're going to be learning about different concepts and applying those concepts in the classes where you write papers. For the journal entry this week, again, you will first need to read Discourse, Communities, and Communities of Practice, Membership, Conflict, and Diversity. This is the most dense and complicated reading that you've completed up to this point. Therefore, I'm going to keep this journal relatively straightforward. I want you to write a 3/4 to 1-page summary of this reading. Remember that in a summary, you are to focus only on what the author is saying and not to include your opinion. Do not use first person this time around. This especially focus on the main ideas of the entire essay. That is your task for this week. Please post this into the Dropbox by Thursday, September the 30th at 11:59 p.m. The one-pager for this week, for your fourth one-pager, you will need to read the reading, which you will need to have done the journal entry. So hopefully you've done the reading. For the one-pager, I'm asking you to generate 3 ideas for a possible discourse community essay. Each site should have a full paragraph written about it. You should explain the purpose of the site and explain how it is a discourse community. You should also evaluate your discourse community against Swale's 6 defining characteristics. It must meet all 6 in order to be considered a discourse community. Essentially, you are justifying why you should get to write about a particular place. You should identify which site is your preferred choice as well. Remember, an early draft of this assignment is going to be due next week. The one-pager should be posted onto the Dropbox by Friday, October the 1st at 11:59. Okay, that is the one-pager, and that is a rundown of the readings and the assignments for this week. Okay, now let's get into the assignment. The University of Memphis English 1010 Discourse Community Analysis. Okay, just like with the first paper, your first draft needs to be 2 to 3 pages. Again, you want to get as close to 3 pages as possible. The final draft is 5 to 6 pages. So this paper is a little bit longer, but once we get into the mechanics of this assignment, hopefully you will have a good idea as to why I'm asking for you to make this paper so long. Okay? The first draft is going to be due Friday, October the 15th. It will be worth approximately 3.5% of your grade, just like the first draft of the literacy narrative. The graded draft of the discourse community analysis will be due Sunday, October the 29th at 11:59. And also, just like the literacy narrative final draft, is 20% of your grade. The purpose of this assignment is to help you more fully understand how discourse communities use language to function and accomplish their purposes and goals. This is really important, okay? Discourse communities use language to function. I'm going to say this incessantly over the course of the next few weeks, but this is the purpose of your paper. You are evaluating how language helps a discourse community, in this case, the discourse community that you select. Okay, you are the ones that are selecting your discourse community, okay, and then you are telling me how language functions. Your goal is to compose an interesting description and insightful analysis of the language practices, spoken and written, of a discourse community of your own choosing. You need to identify a discourse community that interests or intrigues you. You may be a member of that community, you might be an outsider. For our purposes, a discourse community could be any group of people who identify themselves as a group. Some possibilities include a church group, a fraternity or sorority, a club or team, a social organization, an academic or professional group. If you are uncertain whether a group is indeed a discourse community, use the readings from the textbook to see if you can find answers to the following questions. Why does the group exist? What does the group do? What are its shared goals? How do group members communicate with one another? What are the purposes of the group's communication? Which of the above communications can be considered genres? What kind of specialized language do group members use in their conversations and in their written genres? Okay, so you will be collecting information. You will be collecting primary research. Part of what you need to do is to observe and take detailed notes of members of the discourse community while they are engaged in a shared activity. Okay, what you see in the parentheses there are some of the questions. What are they doing? What kind of things do they say? What do they write? How do you know who is an insider and who is an outsider? Collect anything people in that community read or write. What are their genres, official publications, newsletters, blogs, forums, IMs, all that good stuff. And then you are also being asked to interview at least one member of the discourse community. How long have you been involved with this group? Those are some of the questions in the parentheses that you might ask. And if you want, we can talk about what questions further you might choose to ask. Under here, under analyzing information, are some of the additional questions that you may ask yourself as you start to gather your primary research. Okay, as you gather and review information, what catches your interest most? What stands out to you about that community? What surprises you? Listed below are some additional questions that can help you dig more deeply for your analysis of the group. Are there conflicts within the discourse community? If so, about what? How do these genres address these conflicts? Which genres help the discourse community work towards their goal most effectively? Who has authority in the discourse community? How is authority demonstrated in written and oral language? Essay format, introduction. In this section, you have two purposes. First, describe what a discourse community is in your own words. You will be practicing with paraphrasing, and this will be your chance to show me how well you understand the important skill. Second, you will want to describe your individual discourse community. So, in the first paragraph, tell me what a discourse community is. In the second paragraph, describe your discourse community. Now you can choose which order you want to write them in, but typically students start with the general discourse description and then they describe their individual community. For the methodology section, here you will tell me who you intend to interview, the kinds of questions you'll ask, and what you hope to learn. In addition, you may illustrate some of the words you'll be defining. This will be the longest portion. The observation section will be 6+ paragraphs. You will explain some of the lexemes used in your discourse. Most importantly, you must tell me what you observed while you are at your discourse community. Remember to emphasize the way language is used, not necessarily the actions or behavior. Finally, highlight the most important quotes your interviewees said in their interviews. Do not transcribe, paraphrase what they said. Do not focus paragraphs around your interviewees. That is really important. In the conclusion, what is the importance of this discourse community to you and to the world at large? Why is it important to study this particular discourse? Okay, for the Works Cited page, there is a requirement to have one, even if you only do one interview. Do not format your paragraphs around the people you are interviewing. Your paragraph should be focused around either goals, observations, lexemes, and the genres. Okay? Make sure that you follow directions. That's really, really important. And if you have any further questions, please address them with me. I will be happy to talk about this paper with you. Thank you so much, and good luck.